through teams.
Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the Logjam podcast, the official podcast of the League of Gentlemen. Tonight's hosts will be Darren Adams and Tom Bruyere. Yay! Without any further ado, tonight's host, Darren Adams.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we're going to be discussing the upcoming L.O.G keeper draft. We have perspective possibilities for each team. We will be discussing what we think the best theories for those teams are to take. So thanks for joining us. And without further ado, let's get into things underway, Tom.
Well, yeah, I do want to just open by noting that by nature, a podcast that previews the other teams has an audience of exactly two people. So I'd also not only like to welcome you to the show, I'd like to welcome you to the show and myself to the show, since we are prospectively the only two potential viewers of this podcast.
I appreciate the welcome. I thank you for the welcome and welcome you.
welcome me, welcome you, Doctor. All right, welcome. And without further ado, basically what we've done is we've taken the teams just in order of the sheet. You can follow along with your sheet in the handbook as who we think their for sure keepers are, and then some possibilities that they have in addition to that. And we don't have a list in front of us. We've just kind of jotted down a couple of notes in our head, and we're going to go from there. So as we talked about on the first of the list, are your mom's pimps? So because, for unbiased reasons, I'll just take what the group came up together. We decided that because they are mandatory, that Todd Gurley and Tom Brady in the first and ninth round respectively will be picks. And then Darren, who do we think maybe the third round pick would be?
Well, I have some insider information here. A real good source, a trustable source. From what I hear, they're going to go with Kyle Rudolph at this point in the eighth round.
Trying to get some value at that tight end position in a high-volume offense that supports a number of different receivers and players. But Rudolph, a red zone threat of all red zone threats, durable, stays in the game.
Minnesota brings in a quarterback who, have you heard of a guy named Jordan Reed?
I have heard of Jordan Reed.
If Jordan Reed could have stayed healthy, Kirk Cousins' favorite target. Kirk Cousins, to me, doesn't seem, who, of course, is now a Viking, doesn't seem to me a huge down-the-field threat.
But maybe he locks onto an Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen becomes this guy. But you can't argue that Diggs on, taking a streak. You can't argue that maybe Cousins can't get in the ball. But you can't necessarily argue with Rudolph. Like, Rudolph, I think, is going to be a valuable target share, and I think you're right to pick him.
The red zone love that you spoke of, I think, is the turning point. With his fourth keeper, right now, from what I'm hearing, he's having thoughts of Jordy Nelson in the 15th in that Oakland offense. Hopefully Derek Carr can come back from an injury, step up, put that offense back, especially with Tom, with John Gruden there now. I really think that Jordy Nelson could, if you've watched any episodes of Monday Night Football when Gruden was on it, he loves him some Jordy Nelson.
Well, there's an argument made that John Gruden loved every player a little bit too much. It was almost uncomfortable sometimes listening to that. Other potentials on the list, and one might keep in mind, when we're getting information from these teams, it is from confidential sources. And those sources are known in, draft day espionage, stagecraft, if you will, to put out false numbers, put out red herrings.
Absolutely.
So take this for what it's worth. This is what we're hearing around the league. This is by no means decisions of team managements, just speculations. But we did talk about a potential Demaryius Thomas with a new quarterback in Denver. Des Bryant, again, potentially, depending on where he lands, if he's in a spot, can get some target share, maybe someone to think about.
My sources are confirming both of those individuals, Tom.
Well, good. I'm glad sources confirm. Now we're going to move on to another sponsored segment in the official podcast of the League of Gentlemen. This segment is brought to us by Meow Mix, and it's called Ari's Cats. Who is Ari going to take this year? And there's a lot of question marks in Hammerdom. Made the big move to divest himself of that Chiefs offense. Alex Smith leaving, you don't blame him, but you wonder, what could happen with the new whiz kid. But is he smart to divest? Maybe, maybe not. In the wake of the LaShawn McCoy news, what do you think? Is LaShawn McCoy a for sure or a maybe?
Well, I think LaShawn McCoy is a for sure for him in the 10th round. I will also say, right before I get to the McCoy thing, which I'm sure we'll both get into, that the effort to win a championship, even if it does set your franchise back 2 years, 3 years, the name on the trophy lives forever. So for the Hammers, I understand the moves. Congratulations on the championship, brother. And now that your team is completely shambles, enjoy the 2 years of where you usually are in that toilet bowl. So,
and that is not only the shot of the week, but it's also the prognostication shot of the week. Both brought to you by Clase Azul.
So let's get into the McCoy. I've been hoping for this discussion.
So LaShawn McCoy is accused of, and we don't know any veracity. We're not getting any information from Buffalo Police. We're not investigative reporters, but in a phone call to police in immediate aftermath of what appeared to be a home invasion, LaShawn McCoy's estranged girlfriend has accused him of setting up this home invasion, this robbery, yes, threatening her life potentially, which, I mean, out there in the ether is a potential conspiracy to commit murder charge or murder to or manslaughter, something along those lines. That could be a big thing. We're talking about Aaron Hernandez territory here.
Absolutely. And for those who may not realize this, the league sometimes knee-jerk reactions to these situations to protect the Shield, which financially they should do. This might be one of those, maybe you weren't guilty, Ezekiel Elliott, but maybe we have enough information that we're going to protect the Shield.
But we have also seen those suspensions, a la Jameis Winston, 3 games at the beginning of this year. The incident with him and the Uber driver took place in Scottsdale, Arizona, almost 3 years ago now. That's something that they let the courts go through. They compounded evidence, whether they brought charges or didn't bring charges. They set forth a certain amount of evidence in these. It was public evidence. NBA and NFL took that with their investigators, and they decided that Jameis Winston got 3 games. Maybe the McCoy suspension isn't until next week. Maybe Ari gets the entire year, at which point McCoy is the only thing happening in Buffalo and the linchpin of his team. I mean, that's not true. Alvin Kamara is the number 1 off the board at 10. Won in the championship last year.
We're all envious.
Fantastic pick, and it's one of the first times in league history where Ari was super excited about a late-round pick that it panned out. And I'm glad it kind of finally did, because you planted a lot of those seeds, and you're never going to hear this, but congratulations.
So the McCoy in the 10th,
I think you have to do it.
Despite allegations, I think is the smartest pick, other than Kamara for
unless you can trade out of it. Kelson the 5th, I think, is the next obvious one.
Absolutely.
And we put everything else in a maybe category. I mean, you have Evans and Deshaun Jackson in the 1st and the 9th down there. Like, I don't know if that's an offense you want to trust. You got Fitzpatrick for 3 games, like we talked about earlier. You have Carr or Russ Wilson in the 6th or the 8th. Is that a late enough round to get value out of a quarterback? I'm not certain. Maybe in Russ Wilson, but who knows what's happening in Seattle? And C.J. Anderson at 7? I don't know.
My bet here with the Hammers is that he goes with Evans in the 1st. If that's not the case, the Hammers are planning a free agent bid up or a draft or a keeper draft.
I think
trade.
there are more moves in store, and that's why we left that 4 spot open.
Agree.
Moving on to the Cardinals' sin, I think a pop off the board. AJ Green in the 10th, I think, is something that you have to. I mean,
call that a money
pick. It's been a consistent. It's not a league winner, but it's a number that's up on the board every week. McCaffrey in 1. I mean, you spent the pick last year. He's going to get 25 touches a game. You have to think. I mean,
Let me pose a question to you, Tom. If you have McCaffrey as a 1st round value, and we know Saquon Barkley is the 1st pick in the draft.
Yeah.
We know this. So the 2nd pick belongs to the sin.
To the Cardinals' sin. So that is not a keeper, knowing that unless you're giving yourself for someone that might even be better or trade up. But if no one better is left off the 40 men that are kept in this league, then you know that you can get him back and in sense have a 5th keeper.
Why would you exactly, Tom? The smart, educated manager here does not keep McCaffrey.
It's true.
They keep a additional or use the free agent market bid up, and they draft McCaffrey if they like him that much.
Absolutely.
God forbid they wait and see if someone else is dropped there with more value.
Drew Brees in the 3rd, consistently a top 5 quarterback, very often in the top 3. Some out there in the fantasy market would question a quarterback in the 3rd round.
5,000 yards.
I think this league has shown over time having that quarterback, having the extra points, having the guy that has that potential big week just leads to so many positives that it might be worth sneaking one early. I just have never gotten on that train. And then
Jarvis Landry
in the 13th. I mean, who knows what's happening in Cleveland if Gordon is gone, and now we don't know if...
We don't know about Coleman.
Did show up there before
Has
Coleman?
his maturation process really broken hand last year? I mean, has he really come to the value that they expect from him? I love the Jarvis Landry pick here. I really do.
You got a young quarterback. You got a lot of things going on out there.
I mean, where's his other options, Tom?
I mean, T.Y. Hilton in the 4th. Potentially Tevin Coleman in the 7th, Kirk Cousins in the 11th, Jeremy Reed in the 2nd is another interesting pick where you have that, potential superstar tight end, a statistical anomaly where that you might be winning that position every week, but can you put faith in there? A, can you draft a tight end in the 2nd round? And B, can you draft a tight end that has played 4 games a year for the last 5 years? Is he too big of a risk?
I would ask you the same question back, Tom. Can you draft a tight end in the 2nd round?
Both questions, which is why Jordan Reed isn't a no-brainer. Jordan Reed should be a keeper. He is a freak, an athletic freak.
Yes.
But he can't stay on the field, and at 2, I don't think you have value.
But can you find him in the 2nd round?
For sure.
So then why not keep that 5th keeper or that biddable player and draft him if you like him that much? The one I like here, Tom, for him on the side is that Tevin Coleman in the 7th. Yeah. I really do like that pick. I don't know that the Sin will make it.
Consistent shares.
That's the pick.
All right, Benner's Fury, potentially what we thought might have been the thinnest potential crop of keepers.
And the first out of the playoffs.
Chris finds himself in there, but somehow he makes his way to the playoffs every year. DeAndre Hopkins in the 6th is your no-brainer pick here.
Money pick.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We know that Young Confused has been hot on the trail. I know a lot of people have made overtures about DeAndre Hopkins, and that's one that Bender has been consistent to hang on to. He did make some moves last year, which was great to see. Great to see some movement out of him. But what we're left with on the roster is Larry Fitzgerald in the 2-hole. Nobody loves Larry Fitzgerald more than Darren Adams. I know that for sure, and he was a longtime pimp. I know he has been an anomaly in that he has been too old and passe and past his prime for going. This is like his 6th year where he's too old to play, and he seems to be the ageless wonder. And we obviously hope that he can put this year together, and we can have a quarterback that can get in the ball, and maybe him willing us to the playoffs would be cool.
The Japanese fighting fish, Larry Fitzgerald. Maybe my favorite athlete of all time.
Did you just compare him to a Japanese fighting fish?
If you've heard Ron Wilfley of the Arizona Cardinals, yes. That's his
tag
for Larry Fitzgerald. The Japanese fighting fish. I do a horrible Wilfley.
It's actually pretty good.
However, that is what he calls him, and it's because of the wingspan, the way he plays. I will say that this is a 100-catch guy. This is, other than David Johnson in your offense, which is primarily where defenses are looking to attack, right? Where else are you throwing the ball? Christian Kirk? Sure. Let's see how he does. But Larry Fitzgerald's staple. He's going to get you the catch. He drops nothing. So in the 2nd round, for a value like him, I think it's a good pick. I really do. Of course, I'm going to say that. I love him.
With a healthy David Johnson, I think even it makes him more valuable because he finds those positions, those slots, he's not afraid to block. He does all the things. He's an important guy.
Let me ask you this, Sam Bradford, how big of a decision does this become in the Fury's process of keeping Fitzgerald? Why I say that is he's already said in the offseason that his knee has bothered him. He has publicly announced that his knees bother him. Why I bring that up is Josh Rosen is in the wing, right? The Red Sea has Rosen. So when this young individual comes into the game, where is he looking to throw the ball?
It's like
it's going to Fitzgerald. Blanket, right? It is a security blanket. I really like the pick. Of course, I'm biased. Fury, you got to keep Fitz.
Oddly enough, so that you have 2 receivers on the board. All 3 of his potential, in our mind, keepers are wide receivers. You got Hogan in 7, a smaller mouth in that New England offense that feeds a lot of mouths. Amari Cooper, maybe a 100-catch guy, a guy that gets a lot of balls. And let's see what we're talking about. This Gruden offense isn't going to be high scoring. What's going to be? But he's a first-rounder. And then Ty Montgomery, who is played running back for 2.5 years, but if you remember, played wide receiver at Stanford and for a year at Green Bay. He wears number 88. So Green Bay drafts a rookie running back. They've got Jimmy Graham in there. They might, slow some things down. I don't know. I don't know where you find 4 keepers there. I think this is a guy that's going to try to bid.
I mean, we've got 2, right, with Fitzgerald and Hopkins.
But there's 4 keepers.
I think Thien's really in there at number 2. Other than that,
Thielen? That's not Thielen. That's Ty Montgomery.
He doesn't have Adam Thielen?
Adam Thielen is down here.
I don't know where you even find another 2 keepers. Then.
Right. That was the thing about the Fury.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the Titans. We think 2 are obvious. I'm gonna go out of order of what we talked about in the pre-production meeting today, and I'm gonna say that the number 1 keeper for the Titans is Adam Thielen. The Titans have been known to keep based on heart over head sometimes, but this year we're looking at a board where his heart loves his keepers. I think obvious keepers are Melgo and Keenan Allen in San Diego. No reason to think that Phil Rivers isn't going to be able to get the ball, that there aren't enough mouths to feed. And that leaves us with a 4th, and we think in the 12, Zach Ertz. We talked about tight end value. We talked about getting tight end value late and not spending early draft capital on it. He might not have a first-round pick this year. Didn't he trade that to you?
Yes.
So, won't be drafting until the 4th round, but you're sitting there with 4 quality players when that comes around. There's some potentials on there. Cooper Kupp, Marshawn Lynch, I don't think is in a 1. Ryan would be a pick. Jordan Howard in 1 potentially. That might be someone would trade it. Like someone that doesn't have a first round pick would be a great way to get there. But I don't think Cam in the 6th is an option for him.
And I'm going to agree with you, Tom, on the original 4 that you gave for the Titans. Those are the picks to me. Mel Gordon in the 3rd. What a good value. I love the Zach Ertz pick in the 12th round. Absolutely love it. Adam Thielen in the 8th.
We're both convinced that those are those 4. I don't think he bids on anyone. I don't think he changes his mind. I don't think he makes a trade.
In the 2nd.
I think he's right there. Merci, the longest possibly lists on our board. We list Merci with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total keepers, only 2 of which we have as automatic keepers.
He's the owner of Odell Beckham Jr.
And he's the owner of Dalvin Cook. 2 guys coming off injury, didn't play games last year, but when they did play and when they do play are explosive, and there's no reason not to keep them. Dalvin Cook in the 2nd. OBJ could be keepers for a long time if they stay healthy.
Both in also very good offenses.
Oh, yeah.
Who have gotten better.
I don't know if the Giants can be considered very good offense. They haven't been able to sustain a running game since the Carter administration.
They have a guy named Saquon Barkley now. They have a guy named Saquon Barkley, the Savior.
He
is the Savior.
You think he's the Savior?
He takes the pressure off Odell.
Here's what I know is you convinced Tom Farrell that he's the Savior. That's for sure. And you were able to get a guy that I think is in a better offense in Todd Gurley with a guy with a photogenic, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and a young head coach that's calling incredible plays, that's putting him in great space. It's like, fuck it, I've got all this talent, and I'm going to create space for him by throwing, and then we're going to come back and run, and we're going to gouge you. I think he made a great trade.
Well, I appreciate that, and giving up a guy like Todd Gurley to assure you a guy like Saquon Barkley. I understand that move, but I don't. All
right, but so we know what side of that trade you land on. But you make the argument that it makes the Giants better, therefore OBJ if it's better. And you can't argue the OBJ in the 17th.
And is Dalvin Cook's offense better with a new quarterback in Kirk Cousins?
I mean, probably, maybe.
I think it's
if it comes back, is his knee better? You know what I mean? Is that something you come back with right at the beginning? Or is he tentative? Is he a guy that gets hurt again? Like,
we're talking about a defense that's going to give the ball 3 more times to their offense than any other team in the league.
So let's go through this plethora of potential 3rd and 4th keepers. We both talked about the names that popped up to us were Ingram in the 11th and Brandon Cooks in the 2nd. Both guys again in offenses that have Ingram has shown over a couple of years despite sharing carries, but that's what this league is. If you can get a guy with that touchdown ratio, with that kind of red zone prowess, that's a good idea. Cooks, again, you got to figure is going to catch a lot of balls with Sean McVay. Ajayi at 1, Golden Tate at 10, potentially Doug Baldwin at 5, Jimmy Graham at 4, another interesting tight end.
Yes.
Is that too early for a tight end? But we might be talking about early teens Jimmy Graham now hooking up with Aaron Rodgers, something that we didn't see in Seattle.
Can you find Jimmy Graham in the fourth?
I don't know.
I don't either. I think that's real.
I think that's real close.
He's
to
a
his
third or
actual
fourth,
value,
right?
right?
I don't think Brandon Cooks is feasible in the second round. I think it's a little too early for Brandon Cooks.
I don't know. He might be right around there.
I like the Mark
You're not
Ingram.
going to get Ingram at 11. If you
like Ingram
protected, Ed is a value pick.
Even with the suspension.
And that's the difference, is the suspension, and that's why he stays on the maybe side of the board.
The other one I like for him, to be honest, is I like Golden Tate. I like Golden Tate in the 10th.
I can make an argument for Doug Baldwin at 5. I can make an argument for Derrick Henry at 7. Devontae Parker possibly. That's what I think. I think he has a lot of decisions to make.
He
could be a bidder. He could be a trader. We could see some movement from Mercy.
This might be the cloudiest fourth keeper, other than the fact that Benner doesn't have a third or fourth in the entire draft.
I might be able to pry one of those big picks away from him.
Collusion.
Daddy, again, a guy that we have down for 2 keepers, and Andrew Luck hasn't thrown a ball in...
A real one.
Hasn't thrown a real football, or now just has started throwing real football, but hadn't in 18 months.
Is it official size today?
I don't know.
Every drill I've seen is still a college football time.
He's throwing a Nerf football.
I've seen a college one now. I've seen a leather college one. I still have not seen the Duke.
It's that tentative and that tender that they cannot...
I haven't seen it on...
You can throw this size, but not...
I haven't seen it on any clips.
Crazy.
He's been cleared for 11-on-11 drills. They say he's going to start doing it fully. Until I see it, I don't believe it.
Heard. Again, that was a trade, a deadline trade. Stafford went to the Avengers. Luck came back, a guy that was sitting on that Avengers taxi squad until he needed some extra roster players to make a run for the playoffs. Made the playoffs. Didn't make it. But now you're sitting there, you know you're adding Saquon Barkley to this, so David Johnson, Saquon Barkley sounds great, Luck at 12 probably. Then you're talking Michael Thomas 9, Crabtree 6, Amir Abdullah 4. I mean, I think Thomas 9 is probably...
Yes.
I can't read that in his second round pick. Brought to you... It was brought to you by, what's the line of your skincare products? This interruption to our skin brought to you by Med Spa, PhD approved. Give me a bottle so I can do an ad for her. What? What's the name of her product?
Mitzi Russell.
Mitzi Russell. You took pictures of it all day. Didn't know it.
His penis?
And this can be a test. Can you see the difference in my complexion from my full makeover by Derma MD Pro RX? Enhance and maintain. It's the Pro RX system. So we'd like to thank them for sponsoring our podcast today. Wonderful products. I think I look fantastic, to be honest. Just a little bit.
I agree, Tom. You've been glowing.
Glowing. Could be that. Getting back into that Teddy podcast, we're talking about 2 potential keepers, and we're going to move to the Zorros.
With 3 teams left, the Zorros are an interesting team for sure. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a given, right? In the 15th, how do you not? Gronk in the 16th, those probably are the best 2 keepers in the league in those values. Antonio Brown in the 3rd is a money pick. So those 3, for me, are an automatic for the Zorro.
And I think Leonard Fournette in 1 is there. When we looked through the rest of that roster, we didn't even list a potential for the Zorro. So it would be a surprise to the Logjam podcast if we found that they had any other, barring trades, barring free agent bidding.
Yes. I couldn't read your writing on the Fournette, so I agree with you now that I know that says Fournette, that this is probably the easiest keeper in the league as far as our 4.
For sure. I don't think there's any questions there at all. I mean, obviously, if we get any kind of sponsorship with this podcast, we'd love to have a little screen up and have everything up for you, typed. You don't worry about that. Perfect. That brings us to, we're going to get a little bit out of order. We're just going to go 1 down team to the young and confused. Made a big trade in the offseason, and we think he's better for it. You got Kareem Hunt and Mr. Hall. He gets the other 2/3 of that Kansas City connection.
Absolutely.
Puts them at 2 and 3, pairs them with Devonta Freeman at 12, and we know he's in love with Deshaun Watson at 11. Again, a guy coming off injury, but we believe the Young Infused is setting himself up for what could be a pretty high-scoring team this year.
I agree. The question I'm going to have with the Hunt and the Tyreek Hill, both second and third rounds respectively. I like where they're slotted. There's light value to each of those. My question to you, Tom, is Patrick Mahomes. I know everybody loves this guy. I know everybody loves this guy. Have you seen? Have you seen him play? Is this a?
This is the perfect prototype. This is the bubbling cauldron. This is the exact circumstance. This is where we see is the argument. I'd rather draft a quarterback and let him watch for a year and then throw him to the Wolves. Is that a better than bring a guy in, show him your offense, not get him any reps in the preseason, or even get him reps in the preseason, or not, or let him watch for 4 games and start at 8 and have a head swimming in playbooks and run and getting smashed. So now we're going to see Patrick Mahomes. They had a chance to see him on taxi squad in minimum reps all season, enough to say, we're not going to invest that money into Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes is our guy under contract, and we are going to hand him the keys of the Mercedes with this talent around him.
I am just one of those individuals that have a hard time with, completely living by faith. So I think the Kareem Hunt, the Tyreek Hill 2 and 3, that's the keepers. I think there's value there. I think we need to see Mahomes on a real field, real time, real game. How are you going to react? I expect he'll do great. Don't get me wrong. I want to see it. I want to see it before I say Young and Confused, great picks.
Okay. But we will agree. Delaney Walker in the 5th, Tariq Cohen in the 15th, the only 2 potential guys that we saw could break into that top 5. Which brings us last but not least to the Avengers. He's kept the same 3 players now for 3 straight years. I don't think
he's missed the playoffs in any of those 3 years based on that. I agree.
Hasn't missed the playoff in any of those years, but also hasn't been in contention. It hasn't clicked like it had in a couple of other situations or timings. But Lev Bell in the 7th, Julio in the 4th, and Zeke in the 1st seem to be locks. And then it's an existential question. What do you value and where do you value it? Do you like Mixon? Probably a starting running back in the Bengals, but it's a 3rd round value. What could you get him there? Maybe, probably. Stephon Diggs in the 5th. Could he get him there? Maybe, maybe not. That might be a guy that might go in the 4th or the 3rd that you might lose out on, but what are you losing out on? You're losing out on the 3rd guy with some deep threat, not super consistent. Matt Stafford in the 12th. He's not always in the top 5, but he's anywhere between number 1 and number 17. But at the end of the year, he's always at 5, 6, 7, 8.
And after the 8th round, 10th round, you're not finding Matt Stafford.
No, but Kenny Golladay, is that a guy that you believe the hype from a year ago, that he's a year in that second-year receiver jump at 13, where, listen, I think I might be able to get those guys, and if I don't, I'll find value in those picks. But let me take a late flyer and pick in the 2nd, 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I think I traded away a 9th or a 10th to get Stafford. I might be missing out Dixon there, but I'll take my chances.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure you have insider information here, whether you share that with this podcast or not. I like the Golladay pick. Watching him last year, the guy is a physical phenomena. He is a catch machine. And with a guy like Matt Stafford throwing the ball to you, if Golden Tate gives you any double coverage, this guy could, especially the 13th round value. I really like this pick. I also like the Mixon pick. I get it.
Mixon at
the
3
Diggs
is
pick.
Another,
I get
taking another guy off that board that somebody else can't get to.
I think maybe Mixon, Diggs are there if 3rd, 5th, maybe.
I think Mixon, you may take as a 2nd if you don't. Who my 2nd rounder? I feel like I have a 2nd rounder that might be pickable. Who? I mean, I don't want to ruin the podcast, and so we'll probably sign off. But I believe that I drafted someone in the 2nd that's probably draftable as well. There's no way I drafted unless someone got hurt. At any rate, that was 29 minutes. We thought we were going to do 12 minutes, and maybe maybe to keep someone's attention, we do want to go 12 or 20, but we'll talk about a lot of that stuff off air.
Felt good.
We got to thank you for turning in. I think we're getting a rhythm of talking back and forth, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you so much.